and just the human nature of the contract year. And Tavares is obviously in a contract year. On top of that, it's a year where he was asked to dispense with the letter C on his jersey and traded for an A. On top of that, as you point out, the narrative coming into camp was, hey, maybe he's not the number 2 center anymore. Maybe we could find another number 2 center. On top of that, everybody in town is saying if he wants to sign, he's going to have to sign for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
You add all that up with
minimum.
a proud athlete, MJ. You've been in locker rooms of many proud athletes, including yourself. Like, that can weigh on a guy, and he seems to be pushing back in a very real way here.
Well, people are human, right? Like, I understand, Tavares has made a lot of money in his career, but we're all human. And we don't like to be doubted. We don't like to be criticized. We don't like people telling us that we're not as good as we think we are. We don't like to be told we're getting too old, we're too slow, we're too whatever, right? We want to be who we think we are. And John Tavares clearly thinks that he is, and proving that he's an elite level player. No doubt it's motivation. Now, I don't know what it's like to be motivated with $100 million in earnings. Like, I don't know, like, if he's worried about the dollars on his contract, more so just saying, hey, treat me right. I understand that I want to stay here. You understand I want to stay here, but I'm also really good. It's out there. And talk about positives for the year. Hasn't that been another one? Tavares is out there. Marner is out there. Even Matthew Knies in an extension is out there. And we haven't heard hardly anything about it. It's been really quite lovely. And I think for the players, it's been really quite lovely. They don't have to think about it, ask about it. I'm sure they're thinking about it, but not talk about it. And I think that's a great way to do business for as long as you can. It'll come up eventually, especially towards the deadline. What do you do with Mitch? Mitch is having an incredibly good year. But so far, it's been great that there hasn't been a topic of conversation.
Well, the numbers are speaking for themselves, MJ.
Well, that's just it, right? And there's a great quiet confidence you can carry yourself with if you're Marner or Knies or Tavares. Like, check us out. I don't have to politic or push or spin. Just look what I do. Look what I've done. And that is going to get me the money I deserve. And that's a great place for an athlete to be in. But it's also nice in a market that I thought might be pretty noisy this year about that kind of stuff, has been pretty quiet.
Speaking of pretty noisy, it's got noisy out in Vancouver, but did that game last night from PD, you think that'll settle things over the Christmas break between him and the Pettersson talk? Or him and Miller, rather?
Yeah, I mean, sure, not one game, but I think the point is made. If they don't want people to talk about whether they like each other or whether they get along, then just go produce. If you produce, then it doesn't matter if you like each other because it's not impacting your play. The only reason why it becomes a conversation is the idea that whatever differences they have, they're so big that it's affecting the way they play. And that's when a conversation has to be had. But AB, I was thinking about it. You guys have been around sports forever, and we've all heard stories. I've been on teams where players don't like each other, and that's normal. Like 25 different guys, 25 different sort of ways to live and beliefs, and whether you don't get along with everyone beautifully. And there's sometimes you don't get you actually quite dislike people, but it never bleeds into professional. Like, I've never been on a team that I can think of where I can't play on the ice with that guy because I don't like him. Like, I've never seen it get to that point, or my confidence is shot, or I don't want to come to the rink because I don't like him and he doesn't like me. And that's sort of what has been suggested. It's gotten to at times in Vancouver, and not just in the last 2 weeks, but this has sort of been an ongoing couple-year thing for these two guys. So, yeah, you produce, you win, everything will quiet down, and then you can figure out whether you want to live your life with that person, whether you want to talk to the team about a trade because you're unhappy. But the public nature of it goes away if you produce.
Speaking of guys that drive narrative, MJ, what did you make of Patrick Laine in the wake
Unnecessary. Unnecessary.
Yeah, unnecessary.
Right?
Yeah, and now he's out.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. And talk about put a target on yourself. Like, Laine's story's been nice. I think the way that the city of Montreal has wrapped their arms around him and said, "We got you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to support you. We're going to make you feel at home, and we're just going to watch you go play." And I think part of his life, and given what he's been through, that was an important thing for him. And so he probably should have, and I would have told him, like, just take the high road. It didn't work here. We wish them well. I had some good years here, and I've moved on to Montreal. I love it there. That's it. Don't need to say anything else. Or you could even say, like, yeah, it was tough. We did a lot of losing. I think it's hard for everyone, and it affects everyone. You don't have to say, guys, whoever, you can figure it out. they were okay with losing. Because you're pointing a finger at a pretty prideful group of people that don't want to hear that. And, without getting too far down the line, they would say, look at yourself, man. Like, don't be pointing fingers at us. Like, look at your performance when you were here. Don't worry about how well we played. There's plenty to go around there. So, unnecessary. It's been such a brilliant 2 weeks for Patrik Laine. No need to have any sort of negativity. And the guys acknowledged, they went after him physically because of it. And so we'll see how hurt he is. But he didn't have to do. It's been just such a great few weeks for him. No need for any of that.
Johnny, are you up in Ottawa yet, or are you traveling tomorrow?
I am going tomorrow to Ottawa. We get going on the 26th. It's funny, AB, it's a lot of work to get ready for the World Juniors. But once it starts, it flies by, and it is so much fun. And I'm looking forward to it. Ottawa, it's going to be sold out. Canadian team's pretty good. Probably not the favorite. I'd probably say the Americans are the favorite, but the Canadians are probably right in behind them. But just to experience it back in Canada, Halifax was beyond incredible. But now Ottawa, bigger rink, more people, 20,000 people, red and white the whole time. It's going to be great.
You think this Gavin McKenna kid's going to be as entertaining as he's been the last couple of games here in the prelims? He's turning heads.
If they let him, right? The biggest challenge is, coaches.
He can push his way onto the roster, though. Like Bedard did that.
Well, he already has.
Lots of players have.
Right? I mean, he started game 1, 13th forward. Game 2, he was on the second line. Game 3, he was on the second line. They scored. He got 2 goals, and I don't think he's coming off that line. So he already has made inroads for Dave Cameron to kind of prove that I'm maybe not, and maybe if it's the last minute of the game, I don't play with that line if we're winning. Like you put a guy who's 19, who's rugged and tough and strong and maybe gets a puck out better than I do. But when it comes to making plays, as an offensive guy, I love watching him play. Mm-hmm. Like it is just magic with the puck. Every time he touches it, his ability, he's a lot like Patrick Kane, I'm telling you. And that's lofty praise, but the way he handles it so smooth. The guy's 16. He's leading the WHL in scoring. He just turned 17, but he was 16 years old, leading the WHL in scoring, 60 points in 30 games. It's crazy what he can do. So I think he will be a good and important player. Now, we were spoiled by Bedard with what he did before his draft year. That's not feasible. That's not reasonable. But to think he might be one of the leading scorers on the team, that's not out of the question.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think he's going to be a fun team to watch. It's going to be a fun team to watch as a whole, though. It looks like there's a lot of young players to keep an eye on at the tournament. Johnny, appreciate it as always. Merry Christmas, pal. Can't wait to see you up on the tube on the 26th.
All right, boys. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Have a safe one, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. There he goes. Mike Johnson, TSN hockey analyst. That Gavin McKenna kid. I mean, I saw the highlights of the game they had last night. Like, the kid's just unbelievable. You talk about him being a playmaker, and he is, and he can finish, too. Like, 60 points in 30 games in the dub for Medicine Hat.
At that age.
At 16 years old. Turned 20 2 or 3 days ago.
Incredibly impressive.
Yeah, he's going to be a fun talent. Really, really fun talent to watch. All right, coming up on the other side. Oh, Johnny, by the way, join us on the Maple Toyota hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota. Join us at the Maple Toyota pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Confirm or deny. Coming up next here on Overdrive.
Leafs facing center crisis amid injuries, eyeing trade market for solutions. As the Toronto Maple Leafs battle through a growing injury list and a suspension, their lack of depth at the center position has become a glaring issue. According to Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman in his latest 32 Thoughts article, the Leafs are among the teams exploring trade options to bolster their lineup. This effort is coming amid increasing competition from teams like the Chicago Blackhawks and Nashville Predators, who have also set their sights on improving their center depth. Friedman didn't mince words about the Leafs' predicament. The teams currently focusing on centers, including Chicago and Nashville, must consider when others will enter the market. Toronto will undoubtedly be one of those teams, he wrote. While the Blackhawks and Predators may have an edge in terms of cap space and assets, the Leafs remain a team to watch as the season progresses. The Leafs situation is urgent, with up to 7 forwards currently unavailable due to injury or suspension. Ryan Reeves is serving a 5-game suspension, while key players like Auston Matthews, upper body, Matthew Knies, upper body, Kaje Jarnkrok, groin/sports hernia, David Kampf, lower body, Max Domi, lower body, and Max Pacioretty, lower body, are all sidelined. The team has even considered temporarily shifting Mitch Marner to the center position, highlighting the severity of their depth issues. This isn't just a short-term concern for the Leafs. Depth at center has been a persistent challenge for the team, and while stopgap solutions like Marner could help in the interim, the front office appears keen to explore longer-term fixes. For fans of the blue and white, this has been a recurring theme. The Leafs' center depth often becomes a problem at the worst possible times. James Myrtle of The Athletic recently added more fuel to the speculation, naming several potential trade targets who could help the Leafs address their issues. Among them is Ryan O'Reilly, a familiar name for Toronto fans. O'Reilly, who signed a 4-year, $18 million deal with Nashville in 2023, might be a trade candidate if the Predators' underwhelming start to the season, 6-11-3, 31st in the league, prompts a rebuild. However, his steep price tag and history with the Leafs, including rejecting a free agency offer less than 2 years ago, make this a complex and potentially unlikely move. Other names mentioned by Myrtle include former Leaf Nazem Kadri, currently with Calgary, as well as players like Michael Granlund, Nick Jugstad, Brock Nelson, Yanni Gourde, Trent Frederick, Radek Faksa, and Sean Kuraly. While some of these options seem more plausible than others, it's clear that general manager Brad Treliving will need to get creative to find the right piece without mortgaging the team's future. Cap space remains one of the biggest obstacles for the Leafs. Unlike teams like Chicago and Nashville, which have more flexibility and assets, Toronto is walking a financial tightrope. As Friedman noted, competition will intensify as cap-constrained teams strive to create room. For the Leafs, that could mean waiting for the market to develop further, a risky move given their current needs. The situation also highlights the Leafs' ongoing struggle to build a roster that can withstand the grueling nature of an NHL season. Injuries are an inevitability in hockey, but Toronto's current predicament underscores the importance of depth, a quality the team has struggled to consistently maintain. Looking back on recent years, the Leafs have often leaned heavily on their star players, particularly Matthews, Marner, and William Nylander. While these players have delivered in spades, the lack of reliable depth options has left the team vulnerable in critical moments. The current crisis at center is merely the latest example of this recurring issue. Some fans have called for more aggressive moves from Treliving, arguing that now is the time to strike while the team's core is in its prime. Others, however, are more cautious, pointing to the dangers of overpaying for short-term fixes. Striking the right balance will be key, especially as the Leafs aim to keep their championship window open. Despite the challenges, there's no denying that Toronto has the talent to be a contender, provided they can patch up their lineup. The ongoing rumors and speculation surrounding potential trades show that the Leafs are at least exploring every avenue to strengthen their roster. For fans of the blue and white, this moment feels like a pivotal point in the season. With a lineup ravaged by injuries and a tough schedule ahead, the Leafs must act decisively to avoid falling behind in the standings. The addition of a dependable center could be the difference between weathering the storm or watching another season slip away. Whether it's O'Reilly, Kadri, or another surprise name, one thing is certain: the Leafs are under pressure to deliver. And for a fan base as passionate and loyal as Toronto's, there's no room for excuses. The time to act is now, and Leafs Nation is watching closely. As the trade deadline approaches, the stakes couldn't be higher. Will Treliving pull off a move that solidifies the Leafs' status as a contender, or will the search for center depth become yet another chapter in the team's long history of what-ifs? Only time will tell, but one thing's for sure: it's never boring in Leafs land. As the Maple Leafs navigate this critical juncture, their fan base remains as vocal as ever. Toronto is a city that breathes hockey, and the pressure on Brad Treliving to make the right moves is immense. Every decision he makes, or doesn't make, will be scrutinized, from talk radio to social media, where Leafs Nation is already debating the merits of the various names being floated as potential trade targets. Among the louder debates is whether the team should prioritize a high-profile acquisition like Ryan O'Reilly or Nazem Kadri, or focus on a lower-cost, reliable center who can fill a supporting role without costing too many future assets. While O'Reilly's leadership and playoff experience make him an attractive option, his contract and recent history with the Leafs add layers of complexity to any potential reunion. Similarly, Kadri's gritty, two-way playstyle remains a fan favorite, but his cap hit and availability might render him an unrealistic target. Another factor complicating the Leafs situation is their tight salary cap. While Chicago and Nashville can make moves with relative ease due to their financial flexibility, Toronto must navigate a labyrinth of constraints to make any trade work. This likely means including salary retention or moving existing contracts to make room, which could drive up the cost of any potential deal. The question then becomes, how much are the Leafs willing to sacrifice to address their immediate needs? One potential trade partner generating buzz is the Seattle Kraken. Yanni Gourde, a dependable two-way center, has been mentioned as a possible target. Gourde's versatility and championship pedigree from his time with Tampa Bay make him an appealing option. Seattle, however, is in playoff contention and may not be inclined to part with a key piece unless the Leafs can provide a substantial return. Another intriguing name is Brock Nelson of the New York Islanders. Nelson is a consistent scorer and reliable faceoff-man, qualities that would undoubtedly bolster Toronto's center depth. However, the Islanders are notoriously cautious when it comes to trades, and prying Nelson away would likely require a significant package, including picks or prospects that the Leafs may be hesitant to part with. For all the trade talk, some analysts believe the solution might come from within. Sheldon Keefe has shown a willingness to experiment with his lineup, and players like Pontus Holmberg or Fraser Minten could be given an opportunity to step up. While relying on less experienced players carries risks, it might be the Leafs' only option if the trade market proves too costly or slow to develop. Adding to the Leafs' urgency is the timing. The Atlantic Division remains one of the toughest in the league, with teams like Boston, Florida, and Tampa Bay continuing to dominate. Any prolonged slump could see Toronto slip further down the standings, putting their playoff hopes in jeopardy. For a team with Stanley Cup aspirations, failing to address their weaknesses could have catastrophic consequences. Brad Treliving's history as a general manager suggests he's not afraid to make bold moves. His time with the Calgary Flames was marked by blockbuster trades, including the acquisition of Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar in the Matthew Tkachuk deal. Leafs fans hope he brings that same decisiveness to Toronto, especially as the trade deadline looms. Beyond the immediate need for a center, this situation underscores a broader issue with the Leafs roster construction. Depth has been a perennial concern, and while Toronto boasts some of the league's top-end talent, their reliance on a handful of stars has left them vulnerable in moments like this. Moving forward, addressing this imbalance must be a priority for the front office if the team is to achieve sustained success. As the Leafs head into a critical stretch of the season, the next few weeks could define their trajectory.